Hi there, I'm Mr. Katz, the director of TRAP. I'm the theater teacher at Wilsonville High School, and actually I'm standing on the stage at Wilsonville High School right now, and although we wish we could have everybody in the theater for this show, we're happy to present it to you virtually tonight. There may be a few glitches with the video stream, but we're hoping everything works out okay. The students have been working for a couple of months very hard on their parts, and we're excited to present this show to you tonight. So settle in for a good time and enjoy TRAP. Thank you.
Should I start?
We're already rolling.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the story then. When I was much younger, way before I was involved with the law enforcement, I had this idea that I wanted to be an artist, and this was in New York. I lived in this 5th floor walk-up tiny studio, and I wanted to be a painter, so I'd wait tables during the day and I'd stay up late doing watercolors. I'd stay up until 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And that's how I noticed I had this neighbor. I'd hear his alarm go off at 3:30 and he'd go, "Not again." Then at exactly 4:15, I'd hear him fumble with his lock and he would descend down the stairs. But I never saw him. One night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I wanted to see the guy. So at exactly 4:15, I heard his door open and I crept to my own front door. The door had this peephole about this big with a metal plate that you had to slide across to look through. So I flicked off my own lights and I slid the plate aside and I pressed my eye against the peephole. And I screamed. An involuntary scream, one that comes out like that. It's a real scream. It's not like a movie scream. It's very different. It's like, "Ah!" So I scream and I fall back against the bathroom door, a huge commotion as I hit the ground. Because what had happened was, I slid that plate aside to look through, and I saw an eye. He was looking at me. I'm on the floor and I just freeze. From the other side of the door, I hear the sound of the guy picking up his keys and start down the stairs. And now I had to see what he looked like. So I picked myself up and I pressed myself against the door and once again looked through. And there's that eye again. It's mine. It's the reflection of my own eye. I realized it just in time to see this freaked out postman heading down the stairs. That was the most scared I've ever been. And it was just me scaring me. The only other time I've heard that scream, what a real scream sounds like, was that night. When I heard 241 people make it all at once. I told that story, the one about the postman, to Candelaria, and she said, "You're missing part of the lesson. There's more than one thing that scared you. It was mostly about being startled." But what was the first thing you did? You flicked off the lights. People are naturally scared of the dark.
Ms. Ortiz, just state your name for the camera and then just tell us how you got involved with this project.
My name is Candelaria Ortiz, and when the incident at the Oak Box happened, they wanted to understand it from every angle: criminal, psychological, biological, and philosophical. That's why they brought me in.
So, Ms. Ortiz, we were talking a little bit earlier about this theory of yours, recursion. Where did that all come from for you? Can you tell me where it started?
Well, when I was 8, we lived in a house in Dunbar, North Carolina, that was just about a quarter of a mile from Kendall Avenue, the main shopping street. It was a tall house, and from my bedroom on the 4th floor, I could see a billboard. It was an ad for Diet Coke. In the picture, 2 guys and a girl were clowning around but exaggerated. They were posing for each other. I loved that billboard. To me, it was a picture of infinity. Models acting like people, acting like models. It was the first time I encountered recursion, something that bends back into itself, that refers to itself, and so becomes a loop.
I have this picture. We were on our way to church, and everybody looked so nice that I linked up the timer, and I took one. Me with my arms squeezing all 3 of them. And when I went to go take the next one, I looked and it was a miracle shot. It was like the Hail Mary of impromptu photos. So I had it printed, 8 by 10, and I put it in a frame. The frame, though, that cardboard like that bounces, it broke, and so instead of using that, it was leaned against the wall on top of a cabinet. That night, all 3 kids were headed out to the play. I saw that it had slid down, and I had to pick it up to lean against the wall again. So, one moment of grace as they walked out that door, I looked at that picture.
Monaxrip isn't a town anybody outside of Amador County has ever heard of, but everyone's surprised at how pretty it is. Once you get off 234, it's all rolling hills and green. Most people's jobs have something to do with parsley farming. People don't think about it, but yeah, there are parsley farms. Big ones. And not a lot of people move here, but not a lot of people leave. They like it because it's peaceful and safe.
So my wife had pink eye, and I was going over to pick up our buddy Harlan. And when I got there, he says, "Hey, you're just in time. The kitchen sink's a disaster." I'm a contractor. I am not a plumber. But I say, okay, anyway. And after about 5 minutes, I tell Harlan, "Look, buddy, it's either going to be the clog or the show. You okay blowing off the show?" And he says, "Oh yeah, sure thing. And then we can get some drinks afterwards." And I say, "All right, that sounds good. However, we're going to pretend we went to the show."
So I'm brand new to this job. I mean, it's my 4th day ever as a detective. And I really want to do a good job, but I can already tell I'm not. And it's stupid things. Being in a new place really gets in your way in ways that you don't expect. Why are there 2 conference rooms with the same name? The fax machine. Do you press 9? Do you not press 9? And people are... Can you cut this out, please? People are not as nice to me as I would be in their situation. And I can't even tell where the paper goes in the fax machine.
It was a printer.
So I'm thinking to myself, how could things get any worse? And then the incident starts. And things get worse and worse and worse.
Me and Mary wriggle on the ridge beneath the oak box, just talking of the world, and suddenly there's this crazy loud sound. It's like a "Ah!" Yeah, and it sounded like it came from the oak box, and Mary said it must be part of the play.
I'm a forensic engineer. If a bridge collapses or a dam gives way or people are caught in a fire, it's my job to figure out what went wrong. Some of these cases are famous. The Hartford Circus Fire of 1944 killed 168 people. The Great White Fire of 2003 killed 100. One of the things you pay attention to are the doors that trapped people. There was a fire, a famous fire, Chicago 1903, the Iroquois Fire. It was right around Christmas, so the kids were out of school and the theater was full of families, all 3 levels and even standing room on the 2nd. What had happened was the curtain had caught fire, and the people to reach the doors first realized half a second too late that the doors opened in. The people behind them panicked and crowded them, and so they were pressed with the hinges going the wrong way. When you look at a door that's trapped people, you always see scuff marks halfway up the door because the impulse is to kick. Given enough time, sometimes you'll find dents, even larger ones, where they've taken a fire extinguisher or a dresser, something heavy. But the incident with the oak box, I'd never seen anything like it. You looked at those doors and you just thought, what the hell?
So I get home and my wife just runs out the door and just throws her arms around me, and I have no idea what's going on. But it's really clear that I shouldn't say, "Oh, honey, me and Arlen just went to the plant and we got drinks afterwards." Then she tells me, "Look at the news." And I'm expecting Channel 2 as always, but then she turns on CNN.
I wasn't surprised that they could find me, but I was surprised that they thought to look. My name is Reenacting Boehner. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Minnesota. I study fear.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm not sure.
Is it life-threatening?
Yes.
Are you safe right now?
No.
Okay, I'm sending someone. More than one. There are cars already on their way. What's your name, sweetie?
Angela.
Angela. And I'm sending them to the Oak Box. Is that right?
Yes.
And there's a play tonight. The high school's putting on a play? Is that where you are?
Yes.
In the theater.
Yes.
And somebody's hurt?
Everybody.
Who's that again? Where are you in the theater?
I'm just standing on the stage.
Okay, sweetie, I'm gonna need you to take a very, very deep breath and hold it.
It didn't make any sense. All of a sudden, this tiny town is the site of a tragedy no one's ever seen or heard of. 241 people fall unconscious while watching a high school play the program tells us is called Trap. We don't have many events for the timeline. At 11 after 8, we know the people are fine because the usher texts her older brother to pick her up after the play. Then she goes into the theater and turns off her phone. At 9:10, two kids sitting on a ridge below the theater hear what they think is a foghorn, but they assume it's part of the play. Then, at 9:22, we get the 911 call from a girl named Angela Lure, who, it turns out, is the only person still conscious. When we finally get her out of there, she won't talk. She either doesn't know what happened, or she is too scared to say it.
The Oak Box was international news. I was hiking in the hills near Clovis, New Zealand when I first heard about it. People fallen unconscious in a theater. That was key. I had conflicting thoughts. I thought, how horrible. And I also thought, there it is. There's our proof.
I didn't find out about it until that morning when it was on every single channel. I had that weird feeling you get when you see something on TV that's right in your neighborhood. The Oak Box? Again? There's no way this is a coincidence. Everyone was like, that was 74 years ago, but I remember thinking, I don't care if it was 74 years ago. One theater, two tragedies. There's gotta be a connection.
Bond Measure 2A. Funding to build a new theater palace on Semper Bluff passed with 54% of the vote. According to Mayor Bernice Wegman,
We intend to use this money to construct a building that will attract visitors to Menachik from all over the country.
the search for an architect is set to begin immediately.
Theaters have soaring spaces, fly spaces, where the scenery can be pulled up out of view. My plan extends the metaphor of flight all throughout the building. At the sides, half arches will rise like wings lit from within. My hope is that the building will be known far and wide as the Menachik Angel.
Ground broken yesterday on the Menachik Angel, our city's 700-seat theater. Mayor Bernice Wegman overturned the ceremonial first shovelfuls of earth, then declared the new theater to be a boon to our economy and even more to our spirits.
My dear sister, I miss you. I miss you. And there's no one anywhere in Menachik I can tell this to. I'm disgusted with myself. I had Jonathan all to myself for 3 hours and I said nothing. We had dinner at Chauncey's cream room, but it was somber. Jonathan's been so quiet ever since Pat moved to San Francisco. Why do men have so few friends? He was quiet, and we didn't talk, and I couldn't think of anything to talk about except the question. I simply wasn't brave enough to ask it.
3 days in, construction halted on the Menachik Civic Theater. According to Foster Wellingham, chief engineer, sonastic techniques have shown that the granite bedrock beneath Semper Bluff is twice as thick as previously believed.
Our plans call for dressing rooms below ground, as well as stage machinery, including trapdoors. This delay will be a few weeks at most.
He said yes! Adelaide, I can't tell you how happy I am. Saturday night, we walked up on the bluff. We stared out at the lights of the ships. I bent down on one knee and held out Grandfather's wedding band. He asked, "What are you doing?" I said, "What does it look like I'm doing?" "That's not how it's done." I said, "Jonathan, we're going to be married for at least 50 years. No one has to know how it began." Oh, Adelaide, I feel lit from within, electrified. But this time I promise, not in a bad way. Oh, must rush off. The Crowleys are coming over, so I have to buy another sofa.
Local boy vanishes. 10-year-old Marcus Tumble was reported missing by his parents Tuesday night after disappearing from a family picnic. According to his mother, Guillerma,
He'd been playing hide and seek with his cousins, and then he went to go play on the beach below Semper Bluff, and he didn't come back.
Marcus Tumble is 5 feet 2 inches. He was last seen wearing a pair of white shorts and a long black sweater. He is missing a front tooth.
My apologies on not being clearer on the topic of the Crowleys and the sofa. Last week, I was sure Jonathan would rebuff my proposal. It drove me positively frenzied. The morning before I proposed, I was alone in the house, and I banged the south wall of the living room as hard as I could with my shoe. I did it again and again and again, until I was calm. The sofa arrived just in time, and I was able to blame the movers for the dents in the wall.
Yesterday, by a vote of 5 to 4, the Board of Supervisors approved new blueprints for the Civic Theater. According to Supervisor Zed Ornthal,
given our updated understanding of the geology of the bluff, we've had no choice. We've had to abandon the idea of wings.
Dear sister, every moment of every day is the best day of my life. The only shadow is, it's so easy to tip Jonathan into silence. He was so quiet after I made that joke about the kilt he was wearing for the Scottish festival. I said, "Darling, please don't misconstrue this, but I'm glad your business failed. Finally, you're all mine."
For the first time in history, the residents of the placid farming community of Menachep, California are locking their doors. The disappearance of 10-year-old boy Marcus Tumble has unsettled this town an hour and a half north of Santa Barbara. Marcus went missing while at a family reunion beneath an area called Semper Bluff. In the absence of plausible natural reasons, residents are looking at each other warily. Marcus's grandmother Thea finds it suspicious that he should go missing on the day of the Scottish festival.
All those men we've never seen before walking around town in dresses. The police say there's not enough evidence, but I don't need evidence.
man arrested in Marcus Tumble case. Police on Thursday announced they had taken into custody a suspect in the case of missing 10-year-old Marcus Tumble. The man in question is 33-year-old
Jonathan! Adelaide, they put Jonathan in jail. It's unbelievable. They're saying he had something to do with that boy who went missing. It's ridiculous. They won't even say why they suspect him.
The trial proceeds well. On the stand, Mrs. Tumble points to a scratch on the float ring that Mr. Mullocks had in his furnished room. She positively identifies it as a float ring that had belonged to her son. But Mrs. Tumble is not our only ally. Watch the jury as they watch Miss Pike. When her fiancé grimaces, she grimaces. When he looks downcast, so does she. She impeaches herself as a character witness. She'll be desperate to testify on his behalf. We must not appear too eager.
Excerpt from the transcript of the trial at the courthouse by the sea. Cross-examination of Jonathan Mollis.
So, the float ring. You claim that you picked it up on the beach. Is that right?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
I don't know, I just did.
Were you afraid you might drown? So, on the afternoon of May 30th, afternoon that Marcus Tumble disappeared, you claim you have been taking a long walk. A 4-hour walk on the beach. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you in the habit of taking 4-hour walks in the middle of your workday?
No.
Have you ever taken such a walk?
No.
Did anyone see you?
It was a weekday afternoon.
You work at Momsey Limited, shipping and transcription. Is that right? As a typist?
Yes.
How long has that been your employment?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? But you felt comfortable taking 4 hours off in the middle of your workday?
I needed to think about the world. My place in the world.
So you took this walk without telling anyone. Mr. Mullix, is that right?
I wrote a note saying I wasn't feeling well.
And who did you give this note to?
I meant to give it to Mr. Clark, my supervisor, but I found it later in my own pocket.
Verdict announced. Swift justice. After deliberating for only 5 hours, the Jonathan Mollusk jury announced a guilty verdict on account of kidnapping, as well as guilty on account of murder. There was a short commotion in the front row when his fiancée began to wail so loudly she had to be forcibly removed from the courtroom. But the murderer was never to spend 1 second behind bars. 2 hours later, in an extraordinary scene, the boy's father and 3 armed men rushed the bailiff as they made their way from the courthouse by the sea to the transports. The men pulled Mr. Mollusk under the ocean, where they held his head underwater until he was still. A witness reported that this confirmed Mollusk's guilt, as he made not a move to free himself, allowing him to be held under without struggle. Body of child found. On Wednesday, construction workers at the site of the Civic Theater uncovered the body of a child. Authorities have confirmed that 10-year-old Marcus Tumble was found beneath a trapdoor of the long-delayed theater.
It was a 1 in a million tragedy. The theater was sealed for safety, but one of the lower windows had come unlatched. He must have climbed in. From there, he appears to have peered into the still, shallow trapdoor. When the heavy door fell shut, he wouldn't have stood a chance.
The opening night of our Civic Theater was home to the most extraordinary spectacle ever witnessed by the community.
The long-awaited opening of the Menachep Civic Theater will long be remembered.
3 months after the discovery of the boy in the still under construction trap of the theater,
The tragedy known to every member of our town.
the opening of the theater was finally underway.
With the night drenched in a sudden squall, the capacity audience stashed their umbrellas and shook off their coats, eager to put the events of the last few months out of their heads.
The audience watched, rapt, as Medea, passionately played by Broadway actress Lenya Rasmussen, called her children to her breast one final time. But as Medea wailed her vengeance, Norma Pike, fiancée of the unfortunately accused Jonathan Mollusk, entered the theater dressed in all green.
Less a dress than a costume.
Dressed like the ocean,
She held aloft the glass.
tall and green, full of liquid.
Held a tie, like a torch, and proclaimed,
Welcome to this theater. Your theater.
Most of the audience would later report that they believed her to be part of the performance.
This ugly box of a theater will become more famous, but not in the way you hoped. No one will ever think of this dank shell of oak without thinking of the 3 people who died because of it. The boy who suffocated, the man murdered because of the boy, and the woman who cursed the building for all time by drowning in it.
Some looked away, the rest wished they had, as
She brought the glass to her mouth, tipped it back,
Poured it straight into her throat.
aspirated the entire contents of the glass.
swallowed it without swallowing.
Her eyes bore into the audience until they went dark, and she fell dead to the floor.
In front of 700 people, Miss Pike drowned herself with a glass of seawater.
After the oak box incident, one of the things we wondered was, why Menachep? Why the oak box? My theory was that they chose a place that already had some fright built in just by being in the building. Every person in town knows the story of Norma Pike, but it's a local tragedy. On an impulse, really, I googled scary theaters. It's the top result. 4 terrifying theaters. Princess Theatre, Melbourne, Australia. Manila Film Centre, Pasay City, Philippines. Theatre Royale, Drury Lane, London. And then there it was. 4th out of the 4, the Oak Box, Wenatchee, California. I got chills because I realized that's how they found the Oak Box.
It was that Sunday morning, 18 hours after the Oak Box incident, 236 audience members and 5 members of the cast on the ground, breathing thank God. But 2 mysteries. What happened to these people? That was the main question, of course. And the second was the doors. How do we make sense of those doors?
Efren Salas, local firefighter, Station 41, Wenatchee County.
My name is Isa Frente. I'm a neurobiologist at UC Berkeley.
I was the first one in the theater that night. I saw the girl on stage. I'm the one who carried her out. Before I picked her up, she said the thing we couldn't figure out. Forwards?
The first thing I noticed about the bodies was the lack of what's called relative resonance. It's the tendency of people who know each other in tragic situations to cluster. After a fire, you'll find the bodies of friends holding each other, or a parent will be wrapped around a child. But the bodies in the Oak Box were different. People who weren't related sometimes fell on top of each other. People who loved each other in life sometimes sprawled in different directions.
What about the girl, Sarah West? It looked like she was almost to the door. Do you think she was leaving early?
No. Did you see the way she fell? She was running.
And she had earbuds in. She probably wasn't paying attention to the show.
Did you see what she was listening to?
Oh, it was a classical, Gymnopedy number 1.
Gymnopedy number 1 by Eric Satie.
Yeah.
Something else is strange. Hesh?
Huh?
Something wrong?
I didn't know you knew my name.
It's on the screen. Now, what do you notice that's strange about the positions of the bodies?
The programs. So many people are holding them.
That's what I noticed too.
They're holding them like this, like they were trying to read them up until the last second.
It was the speed that threw me. What could have overcome that many people that fast? Perhaps an electrical impulse or some kind of gas had overcome them. But we scoured the ventilation system. There was nothing.
I was in the theater a lot. I wanted to spend time with them.
I said to the fireman, any thoughts on what could have overcome these people so fast?
How do you know it was fast?
Of course it was fast.
That's when they brought me in. Figuring out how long a body has been unconscious is actually not that hard to do, if you have the right equipment. When a person loses consciousness, the body temperature drops by 2.5 degrees. But that takes a while, so we attach electrodes to their foreheads, microthermometers, and what we found was a surprise to say the least.
It didn't make any sense.
The first one to fall was Paul Schmidt in seat A13. Next was Anna Struham, 3 rows back in D41. The first 26 people didn't lose consciousness all at the same time. They went down one by one.
I said, are you sure of this?
I'm positive. Look at the screen. A13, D41, what do you notice?
Nothing.
Next was F42.
So, front row, aisle, and then the other side of the aisle.
Then Lilas Rajay, L19.
The back of row L is at the horizontal aisle in the middle. It started at the front, and then the back, and then the sides.
Exactly.
It works that way until the 26th person, Franklin James.
I know Frank.
Whatever happened to them, it started at the edges and work its way in like something cooking.
This doesn't seem like a natural phenomenon. This seems like attackers.
Agreed.
241 people fall unconscious, one by one, like they're being snuck up on, but that doesn't make sense because they could see every other person falling over. I don't see how humans could do this.
Meaning what?
Hey, can you guys shut up for a second? Did you hear that? There.
I don't hear anything.
I lived in Alaska till I was 10, so I have really good hearing. Your ears are always covered.
It's like a chirp. It's coming from the theater. There, it sounds like the bodies are making noise.
Which bodies?
All of them.
Sunday morning, we had 2 mysteries. Sunday afternoon, we had 3. What overcame these people so fast? What were those sounds Ephraim was hearing? And again, the doors. Those people had 45 minutes to leave, and the doors were wide open.
Officials are baffled today by events in a small California town.
In our top story tonight, a mystery.
Un evento misterioso.
On Monday morning, we put out footage. The tips came flooding in. By noon, we'd gotten messages from 5 continents. I pulled investigators from other counties to check out every single lead.
I got the slush pile. It was bigger than all the others combined, and it had more crazy than I knew was in the world.
I read a book once
Don't
about
understand
intelligent
people on
mothers.
TV at all.
My name is
Just
Jasper,
like-
so you know you can trust me.
Oakbox Hotline.
Hello, my name is Marion J. I'm a professor at the University of Washington. What I'm about to say will sound crazy.
Uh-huh.
Is this a secure line?
Yes, why?
I'm going to tell you something, but you have to promise not to hang up on me.
I can't promise that.
You've got a theater full of people who've fallen unconscious.
Yes.
By now, you've probably figured out that they were attacked one by one.
How do you know that?
I think you're dealing with something called fairnox.
Fairnox. What are fairnox?
Let's start with what they're not, which is human.
Now I'm going to hang up.
Are all your victims still alive?
Yes.
They won't be if you hang up. You have less than a week until their hearts start to stop.
Fairnox.
They're not human, but they look human.
Why haven't I heard of them?
Hello? Hello, is somebody there? Sorry, I thought I heard something. You haven't heard of fairnox because they don't want you to, and because the attacks are rare. Fairnox are like locusts. They attack every 16 years. The last attack was in Gulspike, Scotland in 2003. There was an attack in Iceland 16 years before that, and then 16, and then 16. This is a swarming behavior. The fairnox attack, mate, and then they all die, all except one, a caretaker who watches over the larvae while they grow. And what this means is that all fairnox are 16 years old except one.
Okay. Thank you. We've made notes of your call and I'll get back to you if necessary.
Were there an unusually high amount of new students at Menachep High School this year?
Yes.
And at least one teacher?
The theater teacher.
What happened to the old one?
She died.
Suddenly and with no apparent cause.
Yes. Why wouldn't anyone have heard of these things?
Oh.
What?
Nothing. My house must have blown a fuse. I can't see a thing. There are 4 of us who are trying to hunt fairnox. At the same time the fairnox are hunting us, of course, they have the advantage.
Which is what?
They know for sure that we exist.
Who are the other 3 people studying them?
There's a zoologist in Colombia named Keta Muguruza. There's an evolutionary biologist named Melissa Tingway. And there's a professor at the University of Toronto. He studies fear. Who's there? Who's there?
Then I heard a click. I tried to call back, but it wouldn't go through. I sat in the call room thinking I had a choice to make. I could march into Sergeant Brock's office and say, I know it sounds crazy, but I might be onto something. Or I could move on to the next call. The thing is, even though it was ridiculous, I believed her. But I was new at work and I was already screwing up. I moved on to the next call.
At first, we didn't know what we were studying. Hunting. As it turns out, the key had already been discovered by a Bolivian named Keita Muguruza. She and her postdoc, Abilio Pentti, had won the 2016 Nobel Prize in Biology for their work.
Estamos estudiando algo que la gente había notado durante siglos. Se llama el enigma de la viuda negra.
It's called the Black Widow conundrum. You see, when an insect gets caught in the Black Widow's web, the spider doesn't attack right away. Instead, she follows a particular, almost ritualized pattern of movement. The struggling moth knows that something approaches, slowly. The widow moves herself into view, large, black, shiny. The insect panics, jerking the web up and down. The widow then lifts her forelegs, revealing a blood-red hourglass. And adrenaline flows from the moth into the web, and the strands are drenched in the insect's terror. The widow bathes in it.
It's a brilliant evolutionary strategy because it's a way to get nourishment from a different part of the animal. Every other predator on Earth feeds from the meat of its prey, but these creatures subsist on the powerful chemicals secreted by animals who are terrified. They feed on fear.
A creature that feeds on fear has a different hunting strategy than one that feeds on flesh. If terror is what sustains you, you must create it. And so fairnox don't chase their prey, they trap it.
The Venus flytrap and the black widow are two of the most famous fairnox. A plant, an insect, but then there was an evolutionary jump.
The idea that a species of fairnox could be capable of mimicking humans was so hard to get over that we had to take a step back and ask not how this could happen, but why would it? Why would it be worth it to prey on humans when there are so many other animals that are easier to capture?
Evolution follows the prey. The juicier the prey, the more clever the trap. Fairnox's chosen prey, their only prey, are the creatures on Earth most susceptible to fear.
The human brain evolved to be incredibly good at sensing threats on the horizon. Is that a stick in the grass or a snake? Was that the sound of a lion or thunder? All of that worry helped keep us alive for 100,000 years, but when we emerged from the jungle, our capacity for worry didn't just go away, it repurposed itself. So now, instead of worrying about being eaten by a tiger, we worry about tomorrow's math test.
All the anxiety we produce is useless to us, but from a fairnox point of view, it makes us the equivalent of a large, slow-moving steak.
From the obituary for Marion J., Professor of Neuroscience at the University of Washington. Professor J was well-liked and well-respected. Her unexpected passing has thrown a cloud over the campus. Professor J is survived by her parents, Martin and Pandela J., and by her grandmother, Thelma Lampkin.
And do you know why we're having this conversation?
Because of yesterday.
Could you be more specific?
Because of what happened in the woods.
We are here because of what you told people happened in the woods.
It happened.
You talked to a lot of people yesterday, and you told them all the same story.
Yes.
Is that story something you're sure is true, or is it possible that you made some of it up?
It was all true.
So that's why we're here today, Kenosha. That story about what happened in the woods, that story couldn't possibly have happened.
Kenosha came out of the womb perfect. But when she was 3 weeks old, she had a seizure. We were afraid we were going to lose her. You could tell right away that something had changed.
I remember Kenosha's first day at Menachep because she had gone up to the audition board and the string for the pencil had been broken, so there was no way to put your name on it. I said, "If you want to audition, I've got a pen," and she said, "My name is Kenosha R. Sitterling Johnson."
So the joke very quickly went around. I don't know who said it first. That the R.
The R.
The R.
The R was to distinguish herself.
To distinguish herself from all the other Kenosha Silverling Johnsons.
The kids at our old school could be so mean. Menachep was supposed to be a fresh start.
Thinking back, that was a bad start because you always had that in your head. You had like a little bit of distance.
Kenosha had all the normal emotions like grief and happiness and nervousness, but they weren't wired right. Like she'd grimace to say, "I love you." She spent her entire life studying people's expressions, and she got quite good at showing the right one, but she was acting. It was like she was doing it phonetically. But there was one thing that Kenosha never could manage to do, and that was to lie. There was too much going on. What do you do with your hands? Your eyes look up or down. She couldn't calibrate the information.
She told me she couldn't go to homecoming with me because her uncle was an astronaut. I wasn't going to ask her, but it still made me feel bad.
I'd give her lessons, I'd say. The situation is you're 2 hours late and I've been trying to reach you. I'm frantic and I'm angry. Go. She'd go blank. Then I'd say, "Now you tell me that your phone ran out of juice," and she'd be awful. I'd say, "Kenosha, you have got to learn to master this or you're going to have the most boring teenage years of anybody on earth."
The bench incident really was an accident. You know, the lunch tables, they're long with these long benches. And Kenosha was just sitting there all alone, so I decided to go up to her and asked if anyone else was sitting there. And she said, "Nope." So I decided to take the other bench and move it over to our table so we could fit more people on there. Of course, this ended up playing into her benefit because while she was sitting there all alone is when Clifton showed up.
Clifton? Oh, where to start?
Clifton's kind of perfect.
I think that he's really, really nice.
Kind.
So sweet.
We don't have like homecoming queens or kings or any sort of prom royalty. But if we did, he'd be both kings.
Yeah, so he just walked up over to her and asked if he could sit with her.
There was one thing, actually. When I saw her for the first time, her phone rang and she wouldn't even look to see who it was. But she made herself smile, and when she answered the phone, you could hear it in her voice.
Next thing you know, I look over, they're in the cafetorium, and she's making him laugh.
A lot of times she was hilarious on purpose, but not always. Once I was laughing so hard.
His head literally hits the table.
Once she said to me, "I like you more than water."
You'd see them everywhere together. He would laugh and put his arm around her neck.
I couldn't tell if it was romantic or not.
So, it's barely a week into school, and the new girl standing in front of the audition board. Only the string with the pencil was broken.
I'd wanted to be in the play, so I did some research and found the best book about acting, which is Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting. It's pretty famous, and it's great. You should read it if you're interested in acting at all.
We had talked about the idea of Kenosha being involved in theater because, well, I thought she'd be quite good. She was so good at mimicking emotions. I said, "Well, sweetheart, go for it."
Kenosha, that story that you told to so many people, it made some of those people anxious. It scared them.
Did they cancel the play?
No.
It didn't scare them enough.
Why do you want the play canceled?
Something bad is going to happen.
What's going to happen? Can you tell me that?
It was really early for the fall play to be happening, but we just went with it. We assumed it had something to do with the Miss Pendulum tragedy.
Marsh Pendulum was one of my best teachers. Such a shock. Just 2 days before the start of school, bam, dropped dead of a heart attack. She was 38, didn't smoke, exercised. You know how that just happens sometimes?
She comes home the day of the audition and she burst through the door and I said, "How did it go?" And she says, "I nailed it."
I saw her audition. She was really good, but I told her you never know.
The next day, she calls me from school and she's talking very fast and she says, "I didn't get a part." And I say, "Well, sweetheart, sometimes these things happen. We don't always get everything we expect." And she says, "But I was the best one." And I say, "Even then, there could be all sorts of reasons." And she says, "No, something's up."
The casting was pretty strange.
We were all looking at the list like, why don't I know any of these names? Almost every name on the list was new. Practically every kid who got a part was new that year.
When she'd get too excited, Kenosha would lose her skill at imitating, so I start to hear a "ah," and she hangs up the phone. I was afraid something might have happened.
We were at the first cast meeting, and I was there to see if I could volunteer for tech. Kenosha comes marching in, and she starts to make some sort of announcement, and then she didn't. She started to make beeping noises.
Oh dear, oh, that was a panic attack.
She fell down hard, one knee. She couldn't breathe. She actually crawled out of the room.
A person who tells a story over and over, it gets a performance aspect to it. They subconsciously note what things are getting a reaction, and the more they tell the story, the more they lean into those aspects of it. The story doesn't get so much memorized as it does etched.
She said, "I'm going to tell you a story. Please just listen."
She said, "Please just listen."
Please just listen. Yesterday, I made it out of school, but I hit my left knee.
My left knee.
Right here, so I couldn't go very fast.
I was allowed to walk home on the highway as long as I faced the traffic. I looked behind me and all of a sudden there were 3 people, way back, and I knew I had to get away from them.
There's this big strip of forest between the highway and the Walmart, and before I jumped into it, I looked again and they were way closer.
The forest is deep, but I cut through it all the time.
The forest is deep, but I cut through it all the time.
So I knew I had the advantage, but when I looked back,
I got so scared.
When I looked back, I got so scared, because they turned in right on me. They wanted me in that forest, and they were fast.
Then there's a sound. Crazy loud.
The loudest thing I've ever heard.
Ever, and I can't tell where it's coming from. I'm shaking.
I ran.
I ran faster than I could see.
I looked back once, and that was the thing that scared me more than anything, ever.
One by one, their eyes lit up.
Which I know sounds crazy.
I could hear music ahead of me. I remember there was a carnival, a mini carnival for kids in the Walmart parking lot, just some bumper cars and a tilt-a-whirl. I could hear the 7-year-olds screaming as they came down from the dip of the kiddie coaster.
All I needed was to get to them, but I looked back and there weren't 3 pairs of lit up eyes. There were 2.
Where's the other one?
and so I have to choose. Do I try to make it to the parking lot carnival, or do I hide in the forest? I know I'm close, but for some reason, the scariest thought is that I almost make it, and that just a few feet from safety, the third one is waiting and he grabs me in his arms.
And I can't do it. I can't go forward. People don't naturally look up because we've got no predators from there. So I start climbing a tree.
I start climbing a live oak.
A live oak. And halfway up, I freeze. The two of them get to me, and then the third one does, but they don't see me, even though they light the ground with their eyes.
They start to argue.
They have an argument about whose fault it was. Then two of them grab the third, and he starts to scream, "Please, no!" They hold his head, and one of them says something into his ear. He whispers it, but I hear it completely clear. After he whispers it, the third one starts crying, then he falls over dead onto the roots of the tree. What he whispers is, "Can I tell you a secret?
Kenosha, can you concentrate just a little longer here? You said their eyes lit up. Could those have been flashlights?
No, I know the difference.
Have you ever heard of anyone whose eyes lit up?
No.
So, is it possible you imagined it? If what you said happened in the woods, there would have been 4 sets of footprints, right? But they only found yours.
They must have erased them.
The police followed the tracks to a tree, just like you said, but there was no body there.
They moved it.
And what about that sound? The sound you said that seemed like it was coming from everywhere?
It was a foghorn.
There are no foghorns within 200 miles.
It was a foghorn.
Foghorns are an example of a phenomenon called duotones, sounds that mean different things in different contexts. In the distance, a foghorn is comforting. It tells you that you're safe. But if you hear it loud, it's terrifying. You're too close. It's too late.
After the story in the woods, Kenosha started to act strange. Like, she wouldn't go to the south wing where the theater is. Wouldn't go at all, even to the chem lab. I said, Kenosha, you're putting your whole chem grade in jeopardy. But she wouldn't go anywhere near that theater.
She started to talk bad about the play. She pulled me aside one day and she told me, "This play is like the plague!" And I had no idea what she meant.
She told me the play would be like a sick dog, only scarier.
She said it would leave a greenish taste in my mouth.
It's amazing she had time to go to class. She talked with over a quarter of the school.
She pulled me aside and said, "I don't think you should go to the play. Let's play charades that night."
We should have a movie night.
She said to me, please, please, please don't go to the play. I said, Kenosha, I'm in the play.
She was so scared to go to the play, but of course she ended up going. She thought she could save those people. My brain has an anchor. It weighs down my thoughts and I can't see through it.
Please, I like you more than water.
Kenosha told everyone that she knew that the play was going to end in horror. I knew she couldn't lie, and I still didn't believe her. Fairnox are perfect replicas of people. These things pass for human everywhere. They mimic our emotions, and the only person who has ever been able to detect a Fairnox is someone who is mimicking emotions herself. It was the girl who disappeared. Kenosha. Miss H, please respond to me. When Fairnox attack, it is 99.9% fatal, like rabies. Once you're attacked, you have up to 2 weeks until your heart stops, but it is going to stop. In the whole history of the time this has been happening, there has only ever been one survivor.
I was still working the slush pile. There was only one person who knew what happened in the theater that night. And if I wanted to talk to her, I was going to need an angle. I walked into Sergeant Brock's office without knocking and said, "Let me talk to the girl."
I said the girl's useless.
She said 4 words to the fireman, which doesn't make any sense.
She wanted out of there.
With all those bodies in the theater, it felt heavy and warm, like a greenhouse. It was 241 bodies, but they'd stuck IV tubes into all of them, and the bags came up to here. So that was the first thing you saw. It was actually kind of beautiful. The theater was dark, and the bags glowed.
He came to me and he said, "I want to take some time off."
I wanted to help out in the theater, see if I could figure out what those noises were that the bodies were making. She said nobody can hear those noises except you.
And Efren said, "That's why they need me."
Angela, may I come in? I'll stay over here. My name is Gwendolyn Haysh, and I'm one of the people who's trying to figure out what happened in the theater. Does the security camera bother you? It shouldn't. There's nobody watching you. It's just there in case, if something were to go wrong, which it won't, then they could look back to see what had happened. I feel like I know you. Everyone I talk to, everyone, when I mention you, their whole voice bubbles up. They talk about your soccer and your sense of humor and the CPR class you organized. The people in the theater need your help. Whatever happened at the Oak Box, it's still going on. I have this theory about what you said to the fireman. He heard 4 words, but what I think you said was 4 words. Can you tell me which of those it was? I have something I want to ask you.
Get away from me!
I'm sorry.
Get away!
Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry.
Help! Help me!
Miss Mel, this is Efren Solis. I was in your 8th grade trigonometry class 14 years ago. I'm here to make sure you're safe and comfortable, but that's not all. I think you can hear me, and I think you're making noises, you and everyone else at this theater. If you make any sound, I'll be able to hear you. I have really good hearing. Try it for me. The year I was in your math class was the year those midterms got stolen off your desk before you had time to grade them. Make a noise if you remember that. For me, it's a really nice memory because I was one of the 6 kids who had that period off. And instead of making me a suspect, you deputized me. I never told you what that meant to me. To be trusted like that. It shaped who I wanted to be as a person. It's part of why I fight fires. So, I wanted to tell you, I did steal the midterms. Hey! Hey!
Quiet.
She made a noise. Can you do it again one more time, please?
You gotta keep your voice down.
They can hear us!
Thank you for seeing me again.
Answer every question. You pause more than a second, I kick you out. What's the book you read in high school English?
Hamlet.
In 15 seconds, tell me your life.
Born and raised in Indiana, wanted to be an artist, so I moved to New York. It didn't work out, but I met my husband and we moved here so I could pursue law enforcement. My daughter's in 3rd grade.
6 times 8.
48.
What are you most afraid of?
Millipedes.
What's the secret?
What secret?
Tell me the secret or I'll kick you out!
I don't know what you're talking about.
It was 4 words.
4 words. 4 words that someone in the theater said to you that night. Yes?
Yes.
What were they? You don't have to say them. You can write them down or whisper them as soft as you want.
I'm too scared.
There's nothing here that can hurt you. Who said the words? Male or female?
Male.
Adult or student?
An adult.
What were the words?
I'll tell you next time.
Tell me one. Give me just the first word. The first word is the. Thank you.
There are scientists in Guangzhou, China, who have this therapy that helps in coma patients. It's this big machine that makes sound waves, and it's so big they're shipping it in a cargo plane, and it's over the Pacific right now. And in Cape Town, they have this treatment that goes in your eyes, and it stimulates brain function. And all over the world, in different ways, people are praying for you.
Efren,
Captain Donovan.
I've got bad news. The EEG results came back. None of the bodies show brain function.
No brain function they can measure.
It would register.
You're not a scientist. What if whatever this is hides brain waves?
That's not possible.
This isn't possible.
Well, they're breathing, but they're as good as dead.
Then why am I hearing those noises?
Nobody hears those noises but you.
That's because I have great hearing.
Or because you want to hear them.
I hear them.
Never shout at me.
I'm sorry.
It's not good for you to be here so much.
It gives me strength.
When was the last time you slept?
I don't need sleep. They're sleeping for me.
That doesn't make sense. I don't want to lose you too.
Fine. Then I'll sleep.
Angela, it's me again. I brought you something. I hear you're good. And I brought sheet music if you feel like playing. I'd love to hear you play, but in order to do that, I'm going to have to get close to you, if that's all right with you. Are you all right? Are you too achy to play? How about this?
Jim Petty number 1. by Eric Satie. It's famous for being calming, soothing. In Europe, parents play it to calm their children.
Beautiful. Whenever you're ready, what's the second word?
Plays.
Plays. The plays. What's the third word? Let the music calm you down.
Not.
Good. The play's not. What's the fourth word?
Over.
The play's not over. Thank you. Why does that scare you? Angela?
Captain Donovan, I figured it out. I know what's going on.
I'm here to escort you out.
No.
Yes, Ephraim.
I figured it out.
We're worried about you.
Do you ever have that dream where something scary is coming at you, but you can't move and you can't make any sound except for these tiny little squeaks that people outside the dream can hear? I think that they're trying to scream their way out.
Ephraim, you know I like you. I think you respect me.
I do.
But you are not in your right mind.
I'm fine.
I disagree, and I'm ordering you to come with me.
They need me here.
There's no they there anymore.
I can hear them.
The debate now is when to take them off life support.
No.
The doctors made this decision.
They got it wrong.
I need you to come with me.
Or what?
Or you're fired.
I don't care about that.
No department in the country will hire you.
I'll change careers.
I'm 2 seconds from dragging you out.
You're not big enough.
I brought deputies.
I'll slip between the bags.
Get out of this theater right now. Guys!
No. There are still people in those bodies. Listen to me. If you can hear me, I need you to know something. I need you to know that we love you, that I love you, that God loves you. If you can hear me, I need you to do one thing. Just reach out 1%, and I'll reach back the other 99.
Let's go, Ephraim.
Shh. Do you hear that?
I hear it too. They're in there. We'll find a way to get them out.
We've been over this.
Something protected you.
I don't know what.
What was different about that day?
Nothing.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
And the play, you can't remember anything other than those 4 words. The play's not over.
I would tell you, it's all blank.
Angela, the people in the theater are running out of time. I need a favor.
What?
When you get out of here tomorrow, I want you to come with me to the theater.
No.
I'll be right with you.
I can't.
My guess is when you walk in there, you're going to remember what happened. Let's go through the performance day one more time.
It was a typical Friday. Math, biology, English, social studies, PE, Toastmasters.
Which you said is after school at the Y.
Yeah.
Are you a good speaker?
No, that's why I'm in Toastmasters. I can't even remember the speech because my head gets all light and my chest starts to tighten up. Oh.
What?
It was my day to speak. My dad's an internist. He gave me a pill, Inderal. It just stops the adrenaline from taking over so I can breathe normal.
You took a pill that blocks adrenaline.
No. I took 3.
Who's there?
It's us. Detective Haitian, do you remember Angela? You carried her out of here.
Yes, hello. Are you alright?
No.
Yeah. This place takes some getting used to.
I know almost every face.
You can help them. If you can remember what happened, that could make the difference.
Are they all still alive?
We're giving them water and nutrients, but soon that won't be enough.
Could you leave us alone for just a bit?
Yeah, we're back there if you need us.
Do you remember where you were sitting?
Right over there.
I want you to think about the days leading up to the play. There were posters all around the school.
Yeah, they said, don't tell the secret. Then they changed and said, can I tell you a secret?
And on the last day they changed again. They added the title of the play. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't know the title of the show?
I don't.
I think it might help to get up on stage.
No.
Just come up here with me. You made a phone call from up here. Do you remember it?
I don't.
What's the last thing you remember about that night?
I was running from the parking lot. I was running late because of Toastmasters, but it turned out I didn't have to worry. There was some kind of electrical problem, and they kept us all in the lobby.
Angela, come up here. I won't let anything happen to you. This is where they found you. Take a deep breath, and now lower your head and close your eyes. On the count of 3, I want you to lift your head and open your eyes. 1, 2, 3.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm not sure.
Is it life-threatening?
Yes.
Are you safe right now?
No.
Okay, I'm sending someone. More than one. There are cars already on their way. What's your name, sweetie?
Angela.
Angela. And I'm sending them to the Oak Box. Is that right?
Yes.
And there's a play tonight. The high school's putting on a play. Is that where you are?
Yes.
In the theater.
Yes.
And somebody's hurt?
Everybody.
Who's that again? Where are you in the theater?
I'm just standing on the stage.
Okay, sweetie, I'm gonna need you to take a very, very deep breath and hold it.
What are you thinking about?
The end. Calling for help knowing it was too late.
I want to show you something from that night. This is a program. That's the name of the show.
Trap.
What's wrong?
It was right in front of us.
What was?
The play was a trap, and it was even called Trap. The play was in sections. 1, a picture of infinity. 2, the oak box. 3, what held them? What held us? Something had happened in a theater, at a school play. Everybody in the audience had fallen over, unconscious.
But what happened in the play? What was the story about?
That's what it was about.
In the play you were watching, people had fallen over unconscious in a theater.
Yes, it was mostly interviews, like a documentary. Everyone had fallen unconscious except one girl.
And in the play, what had happened to them?
There were these creatures, things that looked human, but they weren't. They were called fairnox. They attacked the audience one by one and then all at once.
That's what happened in the play. What happened in real life to the people you were with?
The same thing.
No, what made the audience you were with fall unconscious?
Those creatures. That's what attacked us. They looked human, but they were like black widows. They feed on fear.
Those were things in a play. They're not real.
Yes, they are.
I promise they're not.
They confuse people. The play was about all the things that were going to happen to us, so when it started, we couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't.
Creatures who feed on fear and put on plays. It's ridiculous.
Sounding ridiculous is how they hide.
Even if they were real, they're not here now.
Stay away from me.
What's wrong?
Who's here? Who's in the theater?
There was something we couldn't understand at first. If Fairnox attacks depend on anxiety, why were these people falling over? They didn't think it was real, so they should have been safe. What those people were worried about wasn't death. It was that one of the actors would whisper in their ear, and they wouldn't know what to do. They had stage fright, which, as it turns out, was just as fatal as fear of death.
Stop! Stop!
Who's that?
My name is Kenosha R. Silberling Johnson, Everyone, in a calm and orderly manner, leave the theater! You have to leave the theater for your own safety. There's a child trapped in a car in the parking lot, and you all have to leave to make sure it's not your car.
Worst liar in the entire world.
You're not human.
What am I then?
A fairnox. You're human, and you are, and you.
There's nothing you can do that'll get them out of their chairs.
I don't need to get them out of their chairs. I just have to get rid of you.
Good luck.
I've been hiding in the theater this whole time preparing a surprise.
What's a surprise?
If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise. Everybody, they're feeding on your stress. So smile. Relax yourself from the outside in. Now, take a deep breath. Do it! What's wrong with you?
Nothing.
Then why are you wilting?
Stop. I want to tell you a secret.
No.
If you let me tell you the secret, I'll wake up the rest of the audience.
How?
I can do it.
I don't believe you.
The only chance to save them is to believe me. Can I tell you a secret?
Go on. Can I tell you a secret?
Can I tell you a secret? I took 4 Inderall. Surprise.
That was the sound I heard that night. The sound of all those people being freed. The best scream you can imagine.
25 days after the events in the Oak Box began, they came to an end.
My name's Angela Lure. I lived through the Menachep fairnox attacks.
My name's Clifton Barnes. I survived being in the play.
More Aoki. I'm alive because of Kenosha R. Silberling Johnson. Kenosha saved my life.
My whole family was in the theater that night.
Thank you, Kenosha.
Thank you.
We love you, Kenosha.
The people who were unconscious had no memory of what happened, but it changed them. I published 3 papers.
I got a medal.
I got a promotion.
For a few weeks last year, the town of Menachep, California became famous, but the fame went away fast. What happened seemed impossible. Psychologists wrote it off as an example of mass hysteria, people getting scared in a place that already scared them.
I lived through the events, and even I'm not sure. Did it really happen? Or was it like that, I and the people? The most scared I've ever been. And it was just me scaring me.
I have some bad news. The play's not over.
The main thing about a trap is it needs to confuse its prey.
Why would a play have a false ending?
What's real? What's not?
You might experience a few problems with your video stream.
The prey is most vulnerable when it thinks it's escaped.
The spider's not home.
It was just me scaring me.
Recursion. A high school play about a high school play. An audience being attacked while watching a play about an audience being attacked.
You say to an audience, "You're going to die," and they'll stay in their seats because they don't want to miss it.
All fairnox are 16 years old.
Except one.
People are naturally scared of the dark.
Can I tell you a secret?